I am Stacy Drudy with NASPA, and I'm happy to welcome you all here to the first of this year's summer series of webinars hosted and by the small programs section. I'd like to introduce our small programs section chair, Peter Haruna, who has taken over from Sarah Rinfret. Peter, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yes. Thank you so much, Stacy. Stacy actually stepped forward to help us to put this webinar together. So I'd like to say a big thank you to her because this webinar brings us all together as small programs to exchange ideas and to learn from each other, especially on our experiences over the last 15 months or so. As small programs, we have unique challenges, and no one can actually help us. We have to help ourselves. And the way to do that is to meet together, hopefully via Zoom, and then exchange ideas, share experiences. And then we hope that we'll be able to improve our own programs by taking ideas from some ideas that have been tried and tested in some contexts and try to apply it in our own programs so we can learn and improve. So that is really the purpose. And we have 3 planned webinars this summer. So this is the first of 3, as Stacey has said. We expect one in July and the other one in August. And I hope you'll all be able to join us so we can make these webinars very rewarding. Thank you all for joining us. And I want to turn it over to Charles, it is, right?
Yes, thank you very much. So happy to be here, and this is one of the things that I hope we continue. So we started doing the Zoom because of COVID, but I really enjoy meeting everybody, seeing everybody. So this is one of the things I hope that we continue to do, have these Zoom meetings. So today the title is Transitioning Back to Face, or we can see it as the new normal. So I'd like to have the discussion here about how we've adapted during COVID, and what we're going to retain, what we've learned through COVID, and also what are we returning to? What are the old practices we're looking forward to bringing back? So today it's going to be very informal, but if we can share our accomplishments, our innovations, but also to be honest about what concerns we have, what questions we have. So I'm still pretty new as a director. This is finished my 2nd year, so I'm still getting into the role, and COVID hit, which was an additional challenge. And I've learned so much from other NASPA members. People have been so helpful to me, so I really appreciate that, with NASPA meetings and these small group meetings. So what I'd like to do is have a list of things that we can discuss here in no particular order. I have it in the chat. So to keep us on some sort of track, and what I'll do is I'll discuss real briefly what I'm doing at Westfield State, and then hear from other people. If there's something not on this list, please, we can discuss that. If there's something that's lower in the list you want to bump up, we can discuss that as well. So I will start off though with recruitment. So at Westfield State, we do have our College of Graduate Continuing Education. They do a lot of the recruitment things. They do a lot of the advertising. And one of the things they did through COVID was starting to have Zoom happy hours. So this is potential students for any of the master's programs. They can Zoom in and they can get an overview of the master's program, the master's programs in general. And then I'm alerted if there are going to be potential MPA students there, and I come in and we do a breakout room. So that's a way where I can meet directly with them. And I found a lot of those potential students that I've been talking with in the breakout room, they actually do go on to apply for the program and are admitted. So it's been really helpful. And if you're going to the master's program that unknown. I think it breaks that down. They get a face, they get to see who I am, I get to see who they are, answer any questions they have. And there are sometimes questions they'll ask me that I don't know, but I can help them find it. So things like no campus housing or internships, so or graduate assistantships that would be through the university. So that's our basic with recruitment. I would be interested to find out if anyone else has any recruitment concerns or innovations that we can benefit from.
I mean, I can jump in a little bit. I mean, I think we were, so at Laverne, you know, we went through an arc with our MPA program where we peaked kind of in the aftermath of the Great Recession at something over 100 students. And, you know, we had some issues with outreach and I think tuition modeling, as well as kind of just the general trend in grad education. And so, you know, we were kind of in the 50s to 60-ish before the pandemic, and our, you know, had a fair number of students graduate. And so we've actually increased enrollment since the pandemic. And you know, part of that may be that we've just had really good word of mouth. But, you know, there's been a lot of digital marketing that our university started. And so I think that kind of changed the applicant pool a bit. But we were very fortunate to have a new admissions counselor who's great with follow-up. So originally we were going to be doing Zoom type info sessions, and I'm not sure if those really happened on the same schedule, but we're small enough that it's been more individual outreach, and the admissions counselor took on a larger part of the, you know, kind of the onboarding process of new admits compared to our advisor, because we've had a vacancy and understaffed. That's a whole nother issue. But you know, I'm still trying to kind of figure out if we're still waiving recommendation letters. That was one of the things that was difficult to do during the pandemic. So university-wide, that was made more optional. And so I've been kind of asking, but I think the biggest challenge in recruitment isn't so much the numbers right now, it's that we got a wider geographic spread. And so even though we said, hey, we're going to be going face-to-face again in the fall, we have students where it's up to a 2-hour one-way commute to our campus. And some of them were our own undergrads where we've got regional campuses, but you know, this is the issue of being a small program. You don't have quite enough students to split into virtual and in-person cohorts, and our university is still working on what kind of video conferencing capability we're going to have as well. But I think the recruitment part has gone pretty well. And I've heard from other programs in Southern California that there's been an uptick since the pandemic. So it's just more kind of shaping that recruitment class and being transparent on what some of the options are on a potential return to face-to-face.
Thanks. So one thing you said, the wider geographic spread, we've seen that. I see a couple other faces, people nodding. And so we did have a little bump as well during COVID, which allowed us a little more flexibility, offering courses, 2 sessions. But from there, if we could go back to teaching modes. So our faculty and their students, a lot of them are really looking forward to going back to face-to-face. And we are going to have some face-to-face, but we're also, there are people from outside our region that we had coming in. So I've been trying to balance, at least for our concentration-specific courses, where there's a little bit of a, there's more flexibility, where some of them are online, some of them are in person. And for our core courses where they're offered once in person, the next online. One thing I did, since we were sort of allowing people back on campus in the spring, I had the option where you can actually come to class or Zoom in. So it was, I've taught ITV before where you're in different classrooms. It was kind of like that, but people from their home. So that gave a little more flexibility. I'm going to continue trying that in this fall to see how that works. Another thing we're doing is we're teaching synchronous online courses now, which we had never done before. And there are some of our faculty who realized they like that and they want to continue. So the students really want to have that classroom experience, that interaction. They're getting some of that with synchronous online courses more than the original online. So we're having about the same, maybe a little less of our strictly online courses, but having more synchronous, definitely having hybrid courses and experimenting with that. You can come to class or Zoom. Anybody else find about the geographic spread or want to discuss their teaching modes? James, you're on mute.
Yeah, I do that all the time in class, and the students like it when I'm on mute. So I'm with the University of Houston, and one thing we found on recruitment is that Graduate College at the University of Houston sponsored virtual marketing sessions for potential students, applicants. They set those up, we work with them, we put them on, they last about 40 minutes to an hour, and it turned out to be good. And we're gonna keep those up because we're reaching more potential students doing that virtual marketing than they ever did in face-to-face graduate fairs, career fairs, and all that. So that's a heck of a tool. And I would recommend that you look at that for recruiting students.
I like to weigh in as well. I'm seeing the same thing at Bowie State University in Maryland. As an HBCU and part of the state system, we had an interesting dynamic take place that sort of kept us very busy. We were the only university in the state that had a 17% increase in its population during COVID. And so for us, we've been using a variety of modalities too. You know, we wound up going more online. We're teaching synchronous, asynchronous. The other model that we're starting to use now too is the high flex. And I don't know if anybody spoke about the high flex model before I came on, but there we're running into two populations of students. We have a lot of students too that want to come back and be face-to-face, but we also have this other population of students that because of where they work and the traffic in the DC, Maryland area is so heavy that just like you, Charles, when we started out in the fall and this spring, we had a small portion of our students on campus. It turned out that out of all of the face-to-face courses on campus, that by week 3, even though the students said they wanted to be face-to-face, 85% of the students went to the synchronous mode versus coming into the class that they requested. So there's sort of a little worrying on my part that while students may articulate, and we understand from being locked up that there's that desire for human interaction, that they really do like, and I'm afraid there's still going to be a portion of them that when we have, you know, the hybrids and stuff, that most of them, when traffic starts to increase back up, are going to fall back into that synchronous mode and pick that as the option. The other thing that has happened on campus is that the university took advantage and has created for us more online programs. we had the option, but I decided that we would stay with the hybrid mode and to be able to try to reach out to other populations versus going strictly all online. University did another thing that's kind of made me wonder why, but they changed their requirement, and coming back, they want 80% of the classes face-to-face. Pre-pandemic, I was sitting at 67% of my classes were face-to-face and the rest were online or hybrid. So we're making radical adjustments. I think that's an overreaction on the university's part based on the survey of the students indicating, and that goes back to my example that they want more face-to-face. But we're in that process now. We're at 85%. It's gone up to in the class. I don't know if other universities are seeing a gradual increase over the summer in the population number that the university is asking for in the class. But we started out back 2 months ago with 50-50. Now we're up to 80%. So we're still making those adjustments. And ultimately, I think based on sidebar conversations that the real goal is to go back to 100% by the fall.
Thank you so much for this, because we have been remote synchronous through summer. So we don't know what's going to happen. And I do know this pool on commuting, and our university is just last week started collecting vaccine documentations and exemption requests. And the faculty part isn't. So some of this is really to try to boost vaccination rates, right? And we have a new provost, and we're switching academic calendars. So we're going from what was 10-week all hours synchronous to 8 weeks, 70% synchronous and 30% hybrid. So there's just a lot of, and we're starting a month earlier. So, but it's helpful to know that what students may express and what they may actually request could be quite a bit different in practice. And but I will say Southern California traffic is back with a vengeance. So I'm not sure why yours is still ramping up. It's every bit as bad as it was.
In Maryland, it's slowly, because people are still primarily working from home. So like when I go to campus, it's really, since pandemic, it's been a pleasure to drive because it's just so short. I mean, last week I went on campus and normally it could take over an hour and I'm there in 30 minutes. So, but that's going to be short-lived, I think. In the fall, it's going to be just like California, because we've been going back and forth over the last few years between being #1 and #2, flip-flopping between California, DC area, and Georgia. The other thing that happened that was a dynamic I didn't mention was the university got a little scared, and I don't know if you saw some of the same things, but we had a decrease this spring in 800 students not returning, and they made a big push to try to make sure that we didn't lose the students. The net result was, which I still can't believe, there are schools about 6,000 people. We have 2,300 students going to school during the summer. We've never had numbers like that. Typically, it's about 800, 900 max during the summer. Very small number. So we've been talking about what's going to stay, but like you, I think that the hybrid and the high flex model, I think will stay because we could reach two populations. We can have those that are in different geographic locations that have signed up into the program, have them in the high flex mode where we're having face-to-face and the remote being taught at the same time by the professor. So that's one of the changes that we're looking to keep.
Thank you. I saw Angie had something to share as well.
Yeah, something to share and a question to ask too. I'm Angie McGuire. I'm from the Rutgers Camden, the little campus, not the Rutgers Newark, Rutgers Camden. And we've been fully remote synchronous lectures since the beginning of the pandemic as well. We teach all of our summer classes as online classes, but we always have. And we have very, very good enrollment since we went to summer online. That happened 3 or 4 years ago. That really made a big difference for us. But we're a face-to-face program. And so we've been synchronous throughout the pandemic. University of Rutgers, you know, made headlines by saying we're back face-to-face and vaccines are required this spring. So as we go back in the fall, they're saying 100% face-to-face, which again is really not how we've served the MPA community, but we're attempting. So I'm curious about both the high flex option and how other people are handling their hybrids. If you have people in the classroom and you have people on synchronous lectures, how many students do you have in that classroom? I mean, because we run our classes somewhere between 15 and 20 people typically for core and specialization courses, but 20 people when you don't know how many people are going to be live and synchronous, that would be a difficult juggle. So just wondering how you're working that with your faculty.
As we learned in the Marine Corps, Semper Gumby, always flexible. So it's seeing what we're going to be, kind of playing it by ear. So in beginning of semesters, I asked the students how many thought they were going to be in class, how many were going to be doing the zooming in. And I just laughed when you were talking about how everybody by the third week, most of them were at home, because I had that too, where they were so looking forward to being in person in the fall after not being able in the spring. And then they're at home and I asked them, well, why? Oh, it's just easier. So do you want us to continue doing asynchronous? No, we really want to go back to synchronous in the fall. So it could be they're still hesitant in coming out. Also on our campus, in order to be on campus, you had to take a COVID test every week. So it was difficult for the grad students who are doing night school to be able to come in and get a COVID test or get a COVID test somewhere else. So that might be part of it, that maybe it's, we'll get back into the routine. Well, it'd be interesting to see. When everyone's talking about going back to 100%, our university, we have it where you can teach an online course, but for undergrad, but you have to teach the same course within the year in person, which is difficult to do for upper level classes when you have a small program. Fortunately, our grad school is under different rules, so we can have more online and more hybrid courses. We're not with those same restrictions. But that's my experiences. Anybody else?
Mine is pretty similar to yours. For the graduate programs, they've stayed synchronous online. My undergraduate programs were the ones that we brought the freshmen to give them a freshman experience and wanted to make sure that they would stay at Bowie. So that was the population that was brought on campus. I don't know, the main challenge that I'm seeing is the resistance of faculty wanting to come back. And I've already had some faculty retire. And I'm expecting to see more of that. We just had one gentleman that was actually a Bowie grad, has been teaching as an adjunct professor since he graduated, since 1974. And he just said after the pandemic, that's it. You know, he just reached his limit. And we're seeing other faculty too, just not comfortable in trusting the student base to do the right thing. So, and they're taking care of other people with compromised conditions. So I think that this may be a big issue. I don't know how other people are dealing with it, but I'm expecting I might have to hire additional adjuncts to deal with the problem and to try to accommodate some faculty, as they're leery right now, kind of ease them in if we can without and reduce our loss. Is anybody else having the same challenge?
I mean, we're just going to be finding out. I know one concentration class where that faculty member definitely would like to be online, and it's a nonprofit course where we tend to actually have higher than average geographic dispersion, just because we're in Eastern LA County and nonprofits tend to be centered. I mean, they're all over, but you tend to have a little more serving the more urbanized as opposed to suburban areas. And, you know, and I think there was an informal faculty survey, and so there's at least some part of the faculty that's vaccine hesitant, but I don't know, and a few students who self-disclose that. One thing I think that may be helpful to check on is I accidentally found out that our regional accrediting body, WASC, although they've renamed themselves, has given an exemption on remote instruction and needing permission until through the fall. So who knows after that? So I think that's kind of something to inquire about it. But by kind of thinking that we're all sort of experiencing the university really wants to incentivize people coming back and incentivize high vaccine rates. And, you know, we're kind of waiting to see, you know, is that going to be pulled back in some way or not? That's at least what I'm kind of seeing going on in our region.
Thanks. So for the people just came on, I have a list of topics for us to discuss. Whether we get to them all, I don't know yet, but just an idea of topics for today so you can see it. I would like to follow up on what you were saying with public administration. Ambiguity is a big thing, and it's something we have to teach our students on how to cope, deal with it. And some schools might have more plans on exactly what to do during COVID than others, but we all know things can change. If there's a new variant we don't know about, hopefully not, but I'd like to find out what are your protocols going forward? What do you have in place right now, at least? Any contingency plans? And just in general, how you're dealing with ambiguity with students who they're asking for more information than you can give them, or faculty the same? I guess
Well, if no one's going to say anything, if no one's saying anything, well, as far as the University of Houston, the policy is pretty clear from the top, from the provost's office. We meet, of course, we have our college of liberal arts meeting, and then also all the chairs in the university meet once a month. But the message is pretty clear. They want to return to the norm in August, and that's the message we send out. And you can't ask students about vaccinations, and you can't require a mask. That's the University of Houston. So I mean, so it's not any ambiguity there. As far as our fallback position, it would be, we could easily fall back to as we were during the pandemic if necessary, because everybody's got their courses online. Everybody knows how to do it now.
Yeah, all that work to put your course online, and then you have to go face to face. I want to get a second use out of these courses.
Well, we did. That's what we did, because we've been trying to go hybrid since 2013. And so I only had about 40% hybrid. Well, the good thing, if there's anything good come out of the pandemic, we got everything now ready to go hybrid. So we're moving out to 100% hybrid, except maybe for the adjuncts who have a hard time doing all the work necessary to go online.
I have a question with that. So with you going to face-to-face in that model, are you still going to utilize the online platform for the assignments, turning them in as well as distributing it out? So basically, if you had to go back, it's just telling folks to stay home and log on your link?
I mean, for us, it would be that easy, because we use Blackboard. We do most of everything online anyway. except for the class lecture part or the discussion part. Yeah.
I love that. Everything's paperless. What I tell my students is, you turn in a paper, I might lose it. My computer, I only lose that twice a day. But it is with the, by doing it that way too, if a student said, well, I turned it in, I could look and then say, well, you haven't accessed Blackboard in 2 months. So it's a good way of keeping up with that. Also sending out messages. Even before COVID, I was trying to be as paperless as possible. But anybody else?
Yeah, so I'm Brent Steele, Oregon State. We've been online for a few years, so we really didn't have to make any kind of adjustment. But our campus, it sounds like Houston and a couple of your other schools, we're in a university town, and so we've lost a lot of money from housing and student services, housing and dining. And so administration is really hardcore on, the 100% back on campus, and we have to be masks, and you have to be vaccinated, show proof of vaccination. So, but one of the things we did, I see a question here. So one of the things we did is we offer the core courses on campus live normally, right before pandemic, and then online. And one of the things that was good this year is that when we went on, had synchronous live classes, we basically Zoom recorded them. And so our online students could participate in the on the on-campus students. It was actually a really good benefit. And it actually helped us in terms of organizational culture, because now our online and our on-campus students are more integrated than we were before. So we're going to continue with that. But we're going to have to wear masks too when we're inside the building. That's the governor's office. So
I was happy we had the big blast shield between me and the students, so I could take my mask off. That way, the online students, they can see my face, and it's just easier being up in front of the classroom without a mask, even though you have to make sure you're behind that plexiglass, so limits how much you can walk around. But I imagine that we're still going to have masks in the fall unless you can show that you're vaccinated. But we're still looking for, I'm still looking to see if plans are going to change to have concrete what our protocols will be in the fall.
Well, ours is pretty much too straightforward in the sense that they're going to require all the students, faculty, and staff to be vaccinated. We're trying to evaluate what's needed in the classrooms, but the university is leaving that choice for classrooms to the professors. So if they want to have more protection than what's put up in the classroom, then they have to request that specifically. So we're going through now, like looking in our offices and making some requests for additional PPEs and things like that, and trying to figure out, all of that, because everything seems to be changing every week. So I'm in the wait and see mode. We're like I said, we got the 80% up. Now we're waiting to see in the next meeting, I guess, in a couple of weeks, what else is going to change.
Yeah, I would say the way I'm trying to patient and wait and see on this. So, and the vaccine requirements are a bit like Swiss cheese, I would say. The LA County Public Health is very clear about residence hall occupancy for the undergrads. So, if you're in a double or triple, you're required to be vaccinated, period. But because the vaccines are under temporary FDA approval, there's a long list of exemptions and kind of a blanket statement that if you apply for one of these exemptions, you may be subject to these conditions. And so, and you will hear back on whether your exemption is approved within 4 weeks. So it's, medical, ADA, religious, and then there's one called personal. So, and the deadline is July 23rd. So we have a month to see who applies, what even the compliance rate is on uploading things. We have a contract about uploading your vaccination documentation, and I think that's where most of the student questions have come from. But yeah, I have kind of an informal backup plan of my own in these areas. And we'll be teaching the intro class. So I just kind of figure I may be over teaching in the fall. If the numbers warrant, we'll split into virtual and face-to-face, or do something, synchronous with online with a group that doesn't report. I think an intro class, it's actually, it's hugely important to be a very, very personalized in any way. And then 2 of our fall courses were faculty who were originally willing to come masked up in person before even that option was shut down. So, we'll see how this all rolls out. And we haven't actually reopened classrooms, and they're being retrofitted. So it's hard to say if we're going to have full coverage for video conferencing in every classroom. And I don't know if I get a plexiglass, and I'm too short to be behind a podium.
I've had so many issues with campus computers that I just bring in my own laptop and use that as long as I can get onto the Wi-Fi. So I tried when I was doing my HyFlex to have have the big screen, have my Zoom up on there. It was just getting complicated. So all the students in person, I have them bring in their phone or computer, and everyone's online. I've been afraid of getting into a kind of segregation where you have small groups, the people in class together and the people online together. So I've done my best to integrate as much as possible, so those who are at home and those who are in class, that they are communicating with each other in their groups. And since we didn't have that many students in the class, we can really spread out the students in class so they can have different conversations and not be speaking over each other.
There was another. Go ahead, Peter. I'm sorry.
Okay, just a few comments. We have been online since 2013, 2014. So we have a lot of flexibility to decide what are the components, what are the different features of online that we want to include, and then to be able to assess and evaluate them to see how they affect student learning. As to vaccine, these are centrally decided by the university whether vaccine is required on campus. This is decided by the university administration. The university pretty much has given us flexibility and the latitude to decide how we want to make our classes, online classes, very effective and based on our own evaluations. The only thing that we recently did a survey of our graduates and through our student engagement orientation meetings, there is a yearning now for face-to-face, and we just don't know how we are going to go back and do face-to-face. We know there isn't much support on the part of the university for us to do any face-to-face, but we're thinking we could do the CPM. I wonder whether there are programs that are running CPM, the Certified Public Management Program. So we're thinking we can use the CPM, teach the CPM face-to-face over the weekend, and be able to catch individuals who are interested in public administration, and then maybe kind of like motivate them to join the MPA. But again, there's a lot of pushback from our graduates. They really want face-to-face, and they think that the online is, it's not that they hate online, it's just that they feel that it's not the same. And but our faculty are in for online. Right now, we are all comfortably settled to online. And our courses are similar in the sense that we want to make the transition from one class to the other very smooth. So the only challenge we have now is whether going into the fall and beyond, whether we want to introduce some form of face-to-face. For the summer, we do totally face-to-face. And we have a very good enrollment for the summer. I was telling Charles just before we started the conversation, I teach one of the classes, and it's the MPA project. The MPA project will last 10 weeks, starting from May through August. And we want the students to be able to apply theories and concepts and analyze public problems and turn in something concrete. So although it's online, what we've done is we meet bi-weekly. So we get to do Zoom and we get to see individuals enroll for the project class. So for us, it's like right now we are online, more or less. Online is, from the university's perspective, is set in stone. It's hard for us to go back. But we are evaluating some alternatives to see if the university can give us a chance to do something, experiment with face-to-face down the road, maybe into the fall and the spring. That's all I have, Charles. Over to you.
So I'm interested when you said your enrollment's doing so well in the summer. Our enrollment is actually not what I expected to be in summer. There was actually one course I had to cancel for low enrollment. So what I've been hearing back from students, they're burnt out and they need the summer off. So I've already discussed with them their fall schedule. And there are some who are taking summer. Our new students coming in, a couple of those, no, they're going to start with summer course. But I've had the opposite view. I've had lower enrollment than expected for the summer. Anybody else experiences there?
I'm kind of similar to you, Charles, in one sense that while the population is increased on the campus overall, there's been one interesting dynamic about the MPA students. Most of my MPA students work full-time for the federal government. Mm-hmm. And the commute for them going from DC to Bowie and all that traffic, they have always been resistant to taking courses during the summer. And when I ask, it's the same comment. They're tired from working all year. They need a break to recharge for the fall. And while we offered more courses than we ever had this summer, the only reason they're still running is that the university was so scared with the 800 reduction, they just decided they weren't going to cancel any course over the summer because of low enrollment, which I think when they did that, it kept that number at above, I think it's like 2,311 students.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I think we're still just going to be making the changes, and I'm going to be just like with Marcia and everybody else and take a wait-see attitude. The one thing that we did try, and we talked about this at the NASPA conference, and I wasn't sure if any of you attended that section that we had with HBCU, but what we did was we started to try to keep students better engaged. So we experimented with a variety of online teaching modalities where we partnered with Savannah State as an example and Albany State, where we had some of our classes held together for like 6 weeks, just a portion of the entire course of the 16 weeks. We had another part where we had students come together to work on a project. Mm-hmm. And then the other version we tried that's worked very well is we've taken 2 of our existing courses. We've taken like research and strategic management. Mm-hmm. And we had the students look at the strategic initiatives on campus. Mm-hmm. And we started this at the close of the pandemic and carried it over semester to semester now. So they wrote up a whole proposal to address the family-friendly initiative that's in the university's strategic plan. And so last fall, students wrote up a proposal, presented it to the vice president at the university. They accepted it. This semester, they took that proposal, added some more to it, and conducted the first focus group session that they had with students that have families. And then they're passing the next sessions that are going to be conducted in the fall to the next class. So we're doing these handoffs, but students have been really engaged with that. We've had our students come with intercollegiate MPA teams where they came together and they picked topics. So for example, at Napa State Conference in Georgia, an interdisciplinary team got together and they presented on voting and on police reform. So we want to keep that going because the response from the students has been very positive.
Awesome. I wonder if we could, for a future meeting, talk about projects like that, civic engagement projects. When I first started going to NASPA and the universities talking about civic engagement projects, they were the really huge ones that had all these resources. And I came out thinking, wow, great, but as a small program, can we ever do that? I do civic engagement courses now. During the pandemic, in the fall, didn't, but in the spring, we went back and we did one. It was a strategic management nonprofit course where we had a small nonprofit that we worked with and helped them build a strategic plan, which they've implemented. In the fall, we're going back to strategic management, or I'm going back, my course is, we're gonna be civic engaged. But I would like, just kind of ask if maybe a possible course, possible future program, we can just focus on that, because I'd love to hear more of what you're doing with that. I do see that there was a question about office hours, and since we have 10 minutes left, I want to make sure we discuss that. So briefly, my office hours have always been online, in person or by appointment, where it'd be phone calls. This year, I plan on having some in-person office hours and Zoom office hours, but having them at different times. I think it would be confusing if someone's trying to come in Zoom and someone else in person. But I think the Zoom is a way to better engage students, at least on phone, especially because I don't always hear that well on the phone. And so I'm going to have a mix of in-person and Zoom. Anybody else want to discuss office hours?
I'll give my quick input. For me, the biggest challenge for our students that they complained about was they worked during the day and office hours, we didn't have them at night, but what would happen is because I would be on campus and they would see my car, I wound up doing a lot of advisement after the class. And sometimes it would go to 10 o'clock, 10:30. So with COVID, it has just shown us a total new, for me, is a game changer. We're going to go to all online advisement. We've had more students being advised than in the MPA program than ever before because of the lockdown and being available online. I have students now that are just calling, can I meet with you for a minute? I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. They never had that before. So for us, that I saw as a real big win and a better way of providing service to our students.
Yes, the online advisement is probably the most productive for us. So we do online advisement, we do phone, voice to voice, Then we do email exchanges between the faculty and the students. And for the summer, as I said earlier, we actually do bi-weekly Zoom meetings. And usually after the Zoom meeting, a student will say, okay, can I talk with you after the Zoom meeting? And then we seize that opportunity to do some advisement. And for us, the summer enrollment is really very influential in how we actually move forward into the fall. So the summer allows us to continue to engage with our students, allow our students to remain motivated. So in August, when we convene for MPA orientation and engagement meeting, then everybody seems to be on the same page about what's going on. So the advisement for us, the online, has been very productive. It's been very, very effective for us. And there are others like, simple phone calls, like voice to voice. And many of our students here in Texas A&M International University, here in Laredo, Texas, many of our students really like to hear the voice of the faculty. They want to see that it's a live human being talking to another live human being. So this has made a lot of difference for us. And we do that a lot in the summer.
Thank you. Time is almost up. So is there anything that we haven't discussed that anybody would like to bring up?
No, Charles, I think you mentioned the engagement, and I just wanted to, just to mention briefly that we use our summer project, as a means of engagement with the community. So the summer project allows the students to go out there and interview community leaders, for example, interview a fire chief or the police chief or the city manager or the assistant city manager and or the nonprofits United Way. So we want them to be able to engage with the community at that level, using that kind of tool, the interviews, to be able to learn also from these experienced professionals. So that's the way that we do it. Last summer, we actually did a needs assessment for the community, and we allowed students to work in groups to do needs assessment, particularly in the midst of the COVID and so on. What is it that people needed, and what can the city do? What can nonprofits do? So we wanted to get a sense of what is it that was pressing in the community. Yeah, that's all I needed to say. Thank you, Charles. Over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. If nobody has anything else, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for showing up and for sharing. As I said earlier, I learn a lot by listening to everybody. So I really appreciate everyone participating today. So thank you and have a great day.
And I just, thank you. I just want to add that our next webinar will be on July 22nd, same time. And I just dropped the preliminary flyer in the chat.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you everyone for coming. I put my email address just in case anybody wanted to get in touch with me as incoming small programs chair. Thank you so much to all of you for coming.
I'm looking for your email. I don't see it.
You don't see it? Can anybody